Hi, so my name is Kimberly Carter, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am a Gen Z leadership specialist, and I am a coach, a women's coach. And so on this channel, I talk about increasing self belief, self confidence, and ways that you can rise into your confidence as a woman and how you can rise in your leadership. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe, turn on those notifications so when I make a video, you'll know. And so I want to come on here and start sharing a series that I'm going to record. And this is about my journey, how I got here, why my mission, and why my whole business started around consulting and coaching, and why my focus is women, self confidence, and self belief. So, on this first part, I'm going to start my journey at the point that I got fired two times, not once, but twice in 1 year. And why that's significant is because of the lessons that I had to learn, right, from this part of my journey. So it was 2012, and I realized that the first part of my lesson was that I was trying to hide behind a job. And by that, I mean, I was deriving my self worth, my confidence, all of it from just, oh, I work, I make money, I do this. And I won't say where I was working, but the place that I was working, I knew going in that it would be temporary. One, I remember praying about it and just hearing, I'm not really supposed to be doing this. And I just remember thinking, but this makes a lot of sense. This is the next logical progression in my life. I had just gotten married a couple of years before. My husband and I were like, we bought a house. And so in my mind, I'm doing the thing, right? Like I'm doing the thing, which is working. And so I was fired that first time. And then I scrambled, I ran, I looked for the next job, and I did land that job. And then a few months later, I was fired again. And a lot of what I discovered about myself was that in that I was fired, I wasn't working. And so I was being judged as lazy. I could tell whether people said this out loud or whether people just would ask me, "Oh, what are you going to do? When are you going to do it? Why aren't you looking for a job? When are you going to start the next job?" And again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm trying to make people look bad. These are normal questions, right? We have to pay bills. We're adults. These questions are normal. But at this time in my life looking back, I now realize this was a part of me being prepared to embark on the next part of my journey, which for me, as an adoptee, I shared it in my last video, I grew up disconnected from my birth family. And so for me, a next step that was very important was reconnecting with my biological or birth family so that I have those missing pieces of the puzzle. And for me as an adoptee, growing up without my birth family, right? Growing up not knowing just simple things like biological parents names, not knowing exact details because the records that I had were quite vague. And so for me the next part of this journey was looking for my birth family so I could know who I was, feel more rooted in the world, right? And just solve a mystery that I had always wanted to. But when I got fired, I didn't realize that that's the journey I was about to start because I wasn't thinking about that, right? I was thinking, we got this house, let's pay bills. Um, and let me make sure I'm contributing, right? And so once I got fired that second time, that brings me back to my journey. I realized that I was also feeling led to go back to school. And I ended up going back to school and getting a ministry leadership certificate, but I also got a bachelor's of Christian Science. And I did not realize at the time how pivotal this was to my life's work and to where I was headed, because often the journey unfolds for us, right? And we're just supposed to take the next step. You don't necessarily know where it's going to lead, how you're going to get there. I just had this strong sense. And so that's what I did. While I was in school, working on my second bachelor's and working on a ministry leadership certificate, because I already had my first bachelor's, and it was business administration, just a business degree. So, and I had an MBA, right? So I had done a business degree, an MBA, and so I thought I was finished. Let me just say that part. I thought I was done, because why wouldn't I be, right? So I'm embarking on this next part of my journey, and that's when I thought, maybe this is a good time to send off for my record. So, as an adoptee, my adoption was closed. And so, the way I could get any information was I had to write the state that I was born in, and I had to request it. So, I wrote the state, I requested it. I ended up getting correspondence back from whoever was assigned to the case. And this is what changed everything. The person assigned to the case ended up calling me and just saying, well, hey, this was the information we have. And then she said, I'm just curious though, how was your childhood? I was like, it was good. She was like, did you grow up well? I was like, yeah, I grew up well. Like I grew up well. I have no complaints. And she was like, okay, well, why do you want to know, who your birth mother is, or why do you want this information? So I said, do you know your birth mother? Pause. So she had caught me in the middle of a nap. Now, my husband and I were in Florida, right? And we were on a mini vacation he had booked. So when the phone rang, I was taking a nap. I think we had either been at the beach, been at the pool. I was just a little tired, so I was taking a nap. And I won't tell you any lies. The reason I was so unguarded and without reservation about what I said was because she caught me in a nap. So it just came out. It was like first thought, boom. Not that I'm like shy, or not that I don't speak my mind. I'm actually quite outspoken, but anyway, that's not the point. The point is, she asked me that. I gave her the answer, like, hey, don't you know your mom? She said, give me a few minutes. I'm going to call you back. So she did. And she let me know the information that I needed to proceed forward, which was to do a search. Now, that happened in the middle of 2012, like that summer. It took me, she gave me the information. It took me from that point, right, to like fast forward, it was about 2014. So it was a year and a half before I even took that next step. I was still in school this whole time. I was still grappling with identity and who am I without a job. When people talk to you, they ask you what you do. That's it. They don't ask you who you are. And at that time, I felt so ashamed for being in school, because I felt like I was being judged, like being back in school is a cop out, right? Now, I was internalizing, other people's thoughts, other people's ideas, other people's journeys, right? Because that's what was kind of coming my way. But I still stayed on my path, even though I felt left out. Like, if you say you don't work, you get X'd out of the conversation. Like, it just is. If someone says, what do you do, and you don't work, boom, shut out. Because what are you talking about, right? What do you have to discuss? And that's something that's just a part of our culture. This is America, so that's just a part of the fabric, right? And so, even though I was on this journey, I was finishing it, I was still grappling with doubt and self belief. And am I even doing the right thing? This is bogus. And I also don't want a Christian ministry degree. Like, why am I doing this? Never did I want to be in ministry, right? And so, I continued forward, fast forward to 2014, when I was in the middle of, it was our church wide 21 days of prayer and fasting. And so during that time, I felt led to go ahead and take that next step on the journey to reconnect to my birth family. And so I took the name that I had of my birth mother, and it was on my birth certificate, even though at the time I didn't know that was the real person, because I had been told that wasn't a real name. So I didn't know. So I Googled the name, and I ran a background check. It cost like 25, $30. Like, oh my gosh, the stuff you can find out. Um, crazy. Anyway, So I Googled it. I did this background search. The background search said deceased. Boom. That means you have an obituary, right? And that's what I Googled. That's what I pulled. Boom, boom. Pulled all the names off of this record. Downloaded the obituary, had all these names. And then I took it to Facebook, right? Because social media, right? Somebody's on social media. Go to social media, look up the names I have, and I start reaching out. Nothing. Crickets. Nothing. Right? Nothing. But I can find people. And I did find a picture of who I thought was one of my sisters and her child. And y'all, her child looked like I had her myself. Like, oh my God. So I felt like this was them, but I still didn't get an answer. So no one responded back to me. I reached out to two people that I thought may be my siblings. And then I waited. And I waited in 3 weeks. So I waited. I felt crazy. I don't know. Just a lot of things is what I felt. At the end of those 3 weeks, I had got correspondence back from who I thought was my biological brother. He confirmed. We spoke. Boom, boom, boom. But what I'm saying about my journey is that, and it turned out well. Like, I'm still in communication with my biological family. Like, things worked out. And that's the quick version. But that was literally 10 years ago. And that was also in the middle of this other crises I was having that I was talking about, where I was fired, where I felt like I didn't have an identity behind a job, right? I felt like maybe everyone's right. Maybe I'm copping out, right? It was just all of these things I grappled with. Now I'm realizing that I needed the space, the capacity, right? The emotional space, the really even the physical space, like embarking on something so monumental like that. I really did need the space. And I was married. So my husband worked. And interestingly enough, when I got fired that second time, he ended up getting a raise that was almost the equivalent of what I was making, right? So at the time, though, I still didn't fully see the plan or fully trust or understand what was going on. I just felt like I'm not doing enough. I'm not performing enough. I'm not being enough, right? But what I realized is I needed to do this work, right, to develop a sense of self belief, to deeply develop that. For me, that started with reconnecting to my roots. For someone else, it may start with just going back at a time in their life when they were 15 and a teacher just said, "Oh, you'll never be nothing." Or a time when they were 6 and they raised their hand in class, right? And they were overlooked. So what I'm saying is, for me, this is my point, the point where I had to grapple. And that seems like it's extreme, but it doesn't have to be an extreme event for it to have impacted the way you show up, the way you believe in yourself, the way your confidence unfolds. It doesn't have to be major. And the seed can be planted and it can just be the thing you need to work on, right? So yeah, I had to go on this journey. I had to just dig deeper. I had to heal. I had to continue my path. And so when I reconnected with my birth family, I got to know them a little bit. And then I lived in that state for one more year. And I'll save this for the next video, but then my husband and I relocated. So it almost feels like right before I left, this last piece is what I had. And in my mind, it anchors me back to where I'm from. And so moving for me was much easier since my roots ran to where I was from. That's the only way I know how to explain it. But yeah, so that is the first part of my journey. And again, this was very pivotal because I had to deal with self-belief. I had to literally deal with identity, like in the most literal sense, not figuratively, literally. And I had to just trust. I had to trust God. I had to trust my journey. And I had to develop self-belief and self-trust. And it wasn't easy. And I don't think it's easy for anyone to tell you the truth. This is just my story, my journey. And so, again, I am Kimberly Carter. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And this is part one, and I will continue on the next part. Thank you for joining me.